What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now let's get cozy and start today's episode. Are you a leader who wants to ignite movement and change the world through speaking? If you've got something to say, this episode is for you. You're listening to episode 136 of the Lead with Love podcast. And in today's conversation, I get cozy with my friend and speaking coach, Jill Wesley. She is the creator of the Science and Soul of Speaking, which is a unique way to truly show up in your talks. Now, Jill is the speaker coach for TEDx San Francisco, and over the past 25 years, she's trained and coached over 80,000 executives and high-performing employees in some of the world's top companies like LinkedIn, Twitter, Stanford Law School, NFL Players Association. And I personally had the opportunity to have Jill as my speaking coach as I prepared for my first TEDx talk. And today I share a confession that even Jill didn't know about on the self-sabotage that creeped up for me before I went on stage. What I love about Jill is she's been in the trenches of speaking on stages too. She's delivered more than 300 keynotes in all 50 states and in 25 countries. Her work has been featured in USA Today and on NPR. And Jill is dedicated to working with people whose work makes a difference, including speakers in the fields of leadership, technology, science, journalism, pro sports, entertainment, and my favorite, social justice. Some of her clients have won Super Bowls, Pulitzer Prizes, and Emmys. What? So you definitely want to listen to this episode, because some things that we talk about are how to unlock your message and share it with the world, my own experience with my TEDx talk, and also the hesitation, procrastination, and fears that come up when you're preparing to deliver a message that matters to you, and how to identify if your message is sticky. Now, you can find full show notes and links to everything that we talk about in today's episode over at jadaselner.com/136. And if you are loving the Lead with Love podcast and you love this episode, make sure to go over into iTunes and leave an honest review. I read every single one, and it personally fuels me. So let's get cozy with Jill Wesley. Hi, Jill.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have this cozy conversation with you. I feel like we spent all last summer together prepping for my TEDx talk in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And I remember, I was posting inside a kind of an online mastermind group that I'm a part of called the Rockstar 100. And I was looking for a TEDx speaking coach, and two people who are very, very close friends of mine immediately mentioned you. Both made, email introductions, Elizabeth D'Alto and Amy Ehlers, who was just recently on the Lead with Love podcast. And I'm just so thankful to have gotten to meet and connect with you and to choose you as the one who kind of helped me birth and the talk, my message. And I think a big piece that I really loved about getting to connect with you was just how available you were to meeting in person, which we can talk a little bit more about in this conversation. But, we're both local in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you were really just encouraging of like, hey, let's connect in person. Let's connect over a meal and connect face to face, heart to heart, which just like transformed and moved me. And I was like, oh yes, this is my girl. This is my woman that's going to guide me to get this message. And it was also during a time, I had just exited Simple Green Smoothies a year before and still feeling like, who am I? What is my message? What do I want to be known for? And you really held me to the fire, and there was discomfort for me in the process. But like on the other side of seeing, my TEDx talk, like I know the work that you do is really powerful and really, really inspiring too.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much coming from you. It was a real joy working with you. And yeah, I just wanted to make one comment, if I may, that you just said about seeing the finished product. When you actually saw the video, I imagine it's like you realized, oh, wait, it did come together. Because it is like a birth. I mean, when people are working with me, it really is as painful at times as giving birth.
Yes, so painful, so painful.
But you get a beautiful baby at the end.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I want to talk more about this because I definitely have some confessions to share with you and just that whole process. And I think it's important for people to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would love to just start with a question that I like to open with, which is, what does leading with love mean to you? And then just sharing how you put love into practice in the work that you do in the world.
Wonderful. I think leading with love means connecting from a place of integrity and understanding and respect for anyone who's in my circle or people that haven't yet met me. A big part of my work and my foundation is around social justice. So leading with love for me means that my work is connected to making the world a better place, not just for people in my own circle, but for everyone. And so I always try and approach that. And in terms of working with my clients, my philosophy is when they are able to practice self-love and acceptance for the imperfect and painful experience of having to put together some of their keynotes or their TEDx talks, because it's an experience that people feel really exposed and it's full of self-doubt at times. My job and my commitment to them is to help them shine and really show up as themselves in their work and see all the beauty that they have and remind them of it.
I love that. You mentioned social justice, and I have such a huge heart for it. I'm just curious, where did that commitment to social justice come from for you?
Yeah, I think it's in my DNA. I know it. I come from a family that stood up for people of all backgrounds. And my mom originally was a social worker in the 60s and eventually became a special ed teacher in a low income area that was really under-resourced. And my parents, I have a biracial background. I grew up being, the different person, the different girl. We always had a circle of friends and family members that came from all walks of life. So our joke with our own family was that, we have, Christian, Jews, Muslims, atheists, Hindus, Buddhists, we all look really different. We're from all different parts of the world in my actual family. So our joke is when someone would get married to us, we just, on our side of the temple, church, or whatever, we just look like coworkers. Looks like they're related, but we're all deeply connected. So the social justice piece was just, my mom protested in the 60s for civil rights and gay rights, and it was just part of me. So all of my work is related to giving voice to people and causes that don't necessarily get the airtime, attention, or the respect that they deserve. And I've always been involved with nonprofits and working to advocate for a seat at the table and deep inclusion and equity.
I'm curious for you because you're also a woman who knows how to create affluence, like revenue in your business as well. How do you balance between, having a heart for social justice and for equity and change, but also making sure that you have a thriving business that also takes care of your family?
That's a great question, because I think one of the reasons why people burn out, whether they're in nonprofits or they're doing some sort of healing work or they're doing activism, is a challenge with earning money and how they feel about it. So I've just created a business model where my quote unquote day job, I work with people in leadership roles. So they may be in corporate, they may be pro athletes who have foundations, or they may be entrepreneurs that have leadership roles. They are able to invest to work with me. I'm a business expense, like, a PR firm or anything else like that. And I'm able to balance it with pro bono work. And I do quite a bit. So I mentor in informal and formal contexts, and I do speaker coaching for up and coming speakers who are part of different movements or part of different organizations. And they're able to get the same quality training and coaching, but it's within a specific setting.
I love that so much, to really balance those two. And where did you get into, being able to kind of guide and usher people's messages out into the world on bigger stages? Like, where did that start for you?
It started I would say it probably professionally, it started when I was finishing up college. I was teaching business English at a language school here in the States, in Southern California. And we had executives from all over Asia. And I started helping them, aside from just communicating for professional contexts, but also helping them feel more comfortable presenting their ideas in a public setting. Because most people, regardless of where they're from, if you're trying to communicate in a language you're trying to acquire, we feel really self-conscious and we don't want to make errors. And I actually had a theater background, so I would make it playful and get the executives to kind of break out of their comfort zone so I could coach them. And then I spent my 20s, I spent about 6.5 years traveling the world and working. And eventually I was doing business English teaching. So I was working with high-level executives, and I started prepping them for their press conferences. They had speaking opportunities, and I would start prepping them for that. So once I got back to the States, I went back to grad school and got a master's in communication, and specifically cross-cultural communication. So, and then eventually got back into the corporate work when I was about 30. So it's been a 25-year journey. It's been great.
I feel like you're so youthful. I'm like, what, 25 years? No.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, there's days where I feel, it's interesting around age. Like inside, I still feel 30-ish.
Right.
There's moments. And then I catch myself and go, oh, no, I'm not. But fun.
And also, I know, you're one of the speaking coaches for TEDx San Francisco. And I'm curious just where that opportunity came. How did I just love kind of unpacking the dots of your body of work. And so I'm really curious about that. Yeah,
my philosophy has been just ask or just give it a shot. Whether it was when I lived in South America, I ended up reporting to the CEO of one of the biggest insurance companies and banks in South America. But I wasn't prepared to take that gig. It wasn't what my plan was. But when I was presented with it, I said, sure, because I had the goods. It's not like I wasn't qualified, but sometimes I didn't dream big enough. So I'm head of speaker coaching for TEDx San Francisco, and I'm the one that gets to work with all the speakers. And I had coached speakers individually for multiple events over the past 5 years. And I attended TEDx San Francisco, and it's a premier event. It's one of the top TEDx events in the world. And our event, or the event at the time, ours is, I sweetly and respectfully say, like, we have the kind of nerdiest, geekiest event. because ours is really focused on technology and science. So I attended and enjoyed myself, and I thought, oh, I need to be the head of speaker coaching for them. So I just reached out and said, I'd like to help you move the needle in terms of the top researchers and scientists and technologists that you're featuring. I'd love to help them with their messaging. I would love to help you signal to a broader audience that they're welcome to attend. And I know I can really provide a service to you. So that's how it worked.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have worked 20 years ago,
right,
if I didn't have this experience, but I felt really confident about what I could do. And I love the fact that with this type of event, you know, I get to be part of the end-to-end conference and event experience. And they're just lovely people. I mean, it's one of the best things that I get to do professionally.
I mean, I got to sit and witness and just the space and the speakers and the stories. And it was amazing. Like just the people that I got to meet and sit with. I sat with George Mumford, right, for lunch. And it was just, you know, you introduced us and it was so joyful to just have an amazing conversation. But it really is a rich experience to be able to see that. It's a phenomenal high-end quality, like I would say performance, even though it's not like performing, they're like really sharing their message, but adding that storytelling element to it. And I love that your approach is just ask, because I have this similar thing. Like it's like just be this few seconds of bravery where you remember your gifts and your talents and like you have the goods, and to like ask for a seat at the table, because I've done that so many times where it's just like I just ask, or people are like, how did you get to speak at this event? And I'm like, oh, I just sent them an Instagram message and like, here's what I've built, here's what I've created. If you think that this could add value to your audience, I'd love an opportunity to speak. And also the just asking and giving yourself permission to start small, because I think everyone wants to, you know, whether it's speaking on a big stage or being on someone's podcast, like they just want to go big from the beginning. And they're not willing to play like the small potatoes, right? Just to build your confidence and to build that experience, because there's also this pendulum that if you go too big too fast, or you try to ask for too much money up front and you haven't really like built the confidence within yourself, you might self-sabotage yourself in that process. Or so I think it's really important. I do speaking events where I don't get paid, I get paid. And I run that, but I just ask, like, are you looking for speakers or those pieces? Do you feel like I don't know, what are your thoughts around that with people's approaches?
Well, first, my job is messaging. So you said something fantastic that I feel like could be a blog post or some of your IP, but it's a few seconds of bravery. Like, I think that is I love that sentence, because that's all it takes. And it's okay if the answer is no, but if you don't ask, you'll never know. So I think for most people, whether they're starting out in their careers or women, often at all ages, we're not socialized to put ourselves out there consistently. And it can be uncomfortable to ask. And I had a challenge with that. I feel like it was a combination of insecurity and then some ego, where it was like, well, the opportunity should just come to me. Yeah. And, you know, people should just, I think you and I had talked about it when we first started working together, even my website, I didn't even really have a website, and I would work with really high level leaders because I would do great work and they would just refer me, you know, they would say, oh, my buddy's the CFO of this giant tech company. I'm going to text him and tell him to work with you. So I took pride in that, but I was also, I think there was some insecurity about putting myself out for consumption, you know, with a website, rather than trying to like call attention myself. And one of my good friends who has a very successful venture looked at my site at one point and said, your online presence is basically like an abandoned warehouse. Like somebody threw a ball through one of your windows. There's a dog that peed on the, you know, front door. Like none of that is in alignment with the quality of your work. And I realized, and I think I just had an aversion to putting myself out there and asking for the business. And so it's kind of the opposite with you, because your online presence is amazing, and what you've built has been fantastic. And I think advice I would give to anyone in their careers is you need to show up so people know you're there. And it's okay to ask, and it's totally okay if it's a no.
Yes.
You're not a fit. It's not the right time. It's not the right theme. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a no to you and your core being.
Yes, that, I love an interview I did with Amber Ray. She said looking at rejection as redirection.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And shooting for the stars. I mean, that's a cultural thing. There's this, I'm kind of like on this crusade to like reclaim leadership and expertise, because if you're going to truly serve people, you need to know what you're doing. You don't have to have everything figured out, but tell me more about that. Is there like a specific story that could help illustrate what you mean by that? Well, I'm in the speaking industry, so TEDx is a part of what I do, but my day-to-day work is doing keynote coaching for people in leadership roles. I feel like we need to redefine what a leader is. I don't believe that a leader has to be someone who has a degree from a top 20 school or live a certain way. I think there's leadership that's lived and experienced on all different levels, and we're not paying attention to enough types of leadership. But I think leadership comes from experience, and this whole expert industry that's out there, I think especially online, is telling people you can just position yourself as a leader and then command big bucks. And what comes to mind, two things come to mind. I feel like it's similar to what you said about your online strategy, but I feel like being a leader, you don't get to call yourself a leader if other people aren't calling you a leader. It's like saying, oh, yeah, I'm a really good kisser. Like, how do you know you're a good kisser? Like, people need to, other people say you're a good kisser. So you need to have a track record to call yourself a leader, I believe.
Yeah.
And second, I think that, there's a difference between having a leadership role and being a colleague and walking beside somebody. So what comes to mind is when I was 25, I quit my job and I took a 10-month backpacking trip to South America. And at one point I decided I was going to go through the Amazon. And I always think back at that, like, if I'm going to be walking through the Amazon jungle for 7 days with a machete and a tent, the leader has to be someone who's gone through the jungle before and come back, versus the person that's only 10 minutes in front of me. That person who's 10 minutes in front of me can warn me, okay, careful, there are piranhas in this particular, river. But you have to do some laps, I think, to be a leader in some respects. And so, the leadership comes from different lived experiences, and it doesn't necessarily mean someone needs a certificate or a degree or you've come from a certain pedigree, but it's the wisdom and knowledge and experience that people have the right to share. And so a lot of my work is around giving voice to people that have been doing the work and now have the opportunity to speak about it, which is very different from people who just want to be a speaker and want to talk about everyone else's work. Like, we have Google already. So, in my career, when I started in the speaking industry, we didn't have Google. So you could really make a living as a speaker, basically serving tapas to everybody and telling everyone this is what's happening in the industry. And the beauty of presenting to millennials and Gen Zs is they have access to so much information, and their BS meters are so dialed in. And the good news is it's requiring speakers to not just know their stuff, but have lived their stuff.
Oh, I love that. I'm curious, you've made an intention to work with people that have that. You're very clear on who you serve and who you're for, and, really working with someone that has that meatiness of lived experience or that track record of success. And what would you say to someone who has that lived experience, but is doubting that they have a message worth sharing and are not actually sharing it yet?
Everybody has multiple messages inside of them. And the beauty of my work is I get to help unlock that for them. And if someone has been doing work, and you can be an expert in your field in a few years, if you have success. Time doesn't necessarily, or age doesn't necessarily mean, automatically mean that someone has leadership or deep expertise. But I mean, I'm seriously sending out a bat signal to the whole world that if you have been doing work that has made a difference for people, I feel, and you're interested in speaking, I feel like there's a responsibility you have to share it. And it doesn't always have to be, Jada, like you speaking on a stage with 1,000 people in the room, but it could be in a room full of 10 people in a conference room that are going to really benefit from experience and wisdom that you have to share. So it's being willing. Not everybody needs to be a speaker, but everybody needs to know what they stand for. And everybody needs to know how to speak about what matters to them, whether they're having a one-on-one conversation or they're trying to share their values and beliefs with their family, or they're in a professional setting talking to colleagues or a group of people. So not everybody has to be on a big stage, but it does make a difference. It is really important for us to tap into what really matters to us.
Yeah. And how, it's funny because I think people can sometimes see on the outside more than how you feel on the inside. So for me, my experience working with you was like, what is it that I stand for? How does someone unlock what it is they stand for when you kind of blurb it all out and it just looks like this, like you mixed all the paints together and like threw it on a piece of paper. Like that's what it feels like for me, where I'm just like kind of like word vomiting, putting it all out. And it's like, wait, what do I stand for? What really matters? I mean, you saw me in the mess, and I can fully own the chaos that was happening inside my head and trying to tie it all together, right? And I think there are a few things you probably had to say around this, because it's one, if you have many paint colors and paintings to share, how do you pick that one that you can share in 18 minutes or less? Like, I just think there's so many ways that we could go with this.
Oh yeah. Okay. So how about this? I'll start with I love the paint color analogy. I love that. What I usually say to clients when we're working together, especially that first session where we're doing a deeper dive together, that I use the equivalent of, I'm helping you organize your garage, but first you have to drag all your shit onto the driveway. And which you realize, oh my gosh, there's so much more in this garage than I ever realized. And then my job is to say, are we keeping this? Are we saving this for later? And are we going to just donate this message, this piece of IP or this message or story? It doesn't necessarily serve you anymore. You might have outgrown it, or your beliefs aren't tracking with what this particular story represents. I mean, we've all been conditioned, especially those of us in business, to communicate a certain way and try and motivate people a certain way. And luckily, with time and education and exposure, we realize like some of these messages that we're taught from big stages or in internet marketing are pretty manipulative, and they're not necessarily in true service to the audience. And so by dragging everything out onto the driveway, we can really look at it. I'm looking at it unemotionally because it's someone else's content, but I fully acknowledge that it is a messy experience for someone else, especially with the people that I work with are established in their work. And so it's very uncomfortable to not necessarily know exactly what they're going to create at the end of the experience. The uncertainty is really uncomfortable. So what I tell people is, I'd say 20% of the time I have clients that have a very clear message coming in. They know exactly what they want to say. They've been doing research on something for 17 years. And they know exactly what they want to say, or they've been doing business a certain way. But most of the time, people have a number of ideas within them. So my job is to delve a little deeper and talk to them about what really matters to them. When you're imagining a specific person in the audience that could be best served by your message, you really have to be empathetic and think about what's their journey like, what are their pain points, what keeps them up at night, what would they really love to achieve. And you craft a message that's going to serve them in a way that even if they never saw you again, that message would ring so clearly and truly to them that 2 weeks later, they could repeat it in a conversation if they were helping someone else out. So that's how the transmission of messages is really important. So my job is to first figure out the messaging for my client based on the person they're serving the most, the best. And then I have to run things through. If someone's wanting to do more speaking professionally, to do business development or visibility, we have to pay attention to what the market wants. The market shifts every 5 to 7 years in terms of topics that are more marketable, people are interested in. So it's a combination of what are your best messages that are reflective of your body of work and your perspective. What do people really want to hear right now? So, what's going to fill a breakout session if you're at a conference? What are the things that people care about right now? Where do you get your best results? And where are your passions? And so by kind of filtering those elements, we can get a pretty good idea of what your big idea or core message would be. Mm-hmm. But it's an iterative process and it needs to be tested. So you might have something that feels really clear in your head, but you actually have to talk it out with people to get feedback to see if it's really, it's resonating with them.
Yeah, I already see all the circles and Venn diagrams for you. You're so good at it. It's so good. I'm like,
I'm going to get a tattoo, I think. No, I'm teasing, but I everything's a Venn diagram for me.
Yes. I love just finding those key points and where it all meets together, because those questions that you mentioned, and for anyone that's listening, like to really think about those, but that those go through the top of my mind all the time of like, okay, wait, who am I trying to connect and communicate this message to? Because I know a mistake that will happen is people will leave one of those things that you just mentioned out, whether it's they leave their own passion out of it, right, or they leave out the results and the expertise that they have, or they leave out the who, who they're connecting and talking to. Like there can be something that's missing from that process, and you really need them all to meld and meet together. And I know for me, when I did the TEDx talk, I don't know if I told you, but I got food poisoning. I know I told you that. No. But I was manifesting that I would get so sick that I didn't have to do the talk.
No, you were?
I was. Oh my
gosh. I usually say people want to be in the witness protection program, but you were, okay, I have to add to my list.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I think it's good for people to know, because I've spoken on
nobody would guess that.
No, that I've spoken on stages in front of 3,000 people. And it's when I know that something's going to be videoed and that like anyone in the world can see this, I definitely put a lot more pressure on myself.
Yeah,
and you felt it and you held it. Yeah. And I felt, I'm like, I don't have enough time to like really embody this. Like I gave you a very short turnaround window to like pull it all together. And I just remember being there. I'm like, I don't have it. I'm like, I was practicing and I was like 18, 19 minutes. I'm like, oh no, it's too long. And I was just like, maybe I can get so sick that I won't have to do it. And I'm just going to stay in my hotel room and not be able to make it. And I wasn't sick. Like I made it. And then I think I got food poisoning from the lunch that day. Yeah. And so literally like 2 to 3 hours after I spoke, I was out at dinner and I was so excited because I wasn't drinking. Like I was like waiting, we got to hang out with all the speakers and get to know each other. I did what you said, which is like actually sit in the room and watch all the other speakers speak on the stage so you can be with the energy of this event. And I did that. And I was, so excited seeing everyone and just kind of getting a feel of the audience. And then, so I was just like, you guys, after party, I'm going to drink, we're going to party and dance. And like, I go to the after party, like the celebration party, and I go to the bathroom. I was like, I need to go back to my hotel room. I am sick, and I'm in a third world country. Like I can't just communicate. Like I need Pepto-Bismol. Like I need things that I haven't had since I was like 9 years old. And so I manifested the sickness, but I know that God, universe had another plan. Was like, you girl, you are going to share this message and you can get sick on the other side of this.
On the other side, girl. It's true. I mean, you went through a process. I remember when we met the first time, I laid out what it could feel like to you, but I think it was theoretical because your process was pretty typical. It's like, oh, wow, I'm so excited. This is going to be great. I get to do a TEDx, or I'm doing a major keynote somewhere. This is awesome. And then there's moments of, oh, man, I'm super busy. I have a lot on my plate. How am I going to find time? And then there's, wow, I do have some ideas, but I'm stuck. And then the procrastination comes in. So people will procrastinate about doing some of the kind of work and reflection, because a lot of my clients with other areas of their work, things can come to them pretty quickly. And so there's a lot of kind of agonizing over, do I put this in? I'm stuck. I can't figure out how to articulate this concept. And so your experience was pretty typical. And then there is, I call it the, witness protection program admission process, where people are like, now, how do I fake my own death or get out of doing, I will fake an abduction. And so I don't have to do the talk. I've done that as a speaker. I mean, I used to be a speaker. So I remember I was supposed to do something in the city of Monterey for a group of surgeons. And I had this total moment of, okay, I'm not going to get in a car accident, but I'm just going to call them and tell them I was in a car accident. It's like, I really thought through, like, how could I? And then I thought, no, because they're doctors and I'd be able to look up whether or not I was in the accident. Right? Like, well, then why aren't you in our stupid hospital, lady? So my plan didn't work. But so you went through a natural process that people go through. And I mean, I do tell people, like, I'm not a life coach or a therapist. I mean, I teach something that's pretty practical. And I encourage people, if, their family or their therapist, if they want to process things, outside of the kind of keynote construction piece, I can hold space and I'm supportive, but, I still have a background in kind of high stakes corporate communications training, where it's the container in corporate, even though some people kind of cringe when they think about it. What I enjoy about doing that corporate work is there's enough of a container that requires us to stay focused. Now, it doesn't mean that people should never show their true selves or they shouldn't be allowed to have emotions, et cetera. But if I'm doing, a big part of my work for a long time was signing 40-page NDAs and then going through a side door and prepping a C-level exec for their keynotes. And I can power those out fast with them. I can do that in a matter of hours. When you're focused and you know that you're working on a message that's greater than yourself and that's connected to a mission or a company initiative, it allows you to just kind of create a sense of flow and work on it and not doubt yourself as much. And I think when we're working on individual projects as entrepreneurs, or we have a lot of space and time, we end up cycling through, I'm excited, this is going to be hard. Oh my gosh, I hate this. Oh, I hate her. I always laugh. Like, I know people curse at me while they're working with me at some point, like, what is she, because it's hard. It's so hard. So I loved working with you. And I'm so glad that you actually saw the talk. You reached out to me right after the talk and said it went well and that you got great feedback right away from people, didn't you?
Yeah. It was, and it was really cool to see the message that resonate, like leading with love. Like, it was just like, and it's actually, cause I was going, this podcast, I was pretty clear. I'm like, oh, it's going to be love over metrics. And then the reflection back of like kind of the message that resonated as people were coming up to me was leading with love. And which is how I define what love over metrics is like leading with love and the numbers will follow. But I just kept hearing like the bigger idea. And so it was amazing. And people were coming up about like team and company culture and just like and there were people who would just share videos with me, just personal videos saying how they, constructed different things within their companies just from this 15-minute talk. So my talk was 15 minutes. And not 19. And I swore, I was like, baby, I was like, baby, I think that the talk was like 9 minutes long. I forgot everything. I was talking so fast. Like, that was my experience. And I watched the talk and I was like, oh, did good. I'm speaking really actually slow and methodically. Yes. It's so fascinating. The experience that we create for ourselves and our reality was so different than what the truth was. So I'm so thankful for your compassion, for your patience. It's crazy that only 20% of your people are really clear and that you have to deal with 80% of people like me who have the just like that whole roller coaster of an experience. But your groundedness and taking the emotion out of it actually helped pull it all together. But for me, who's like an empath and like, I need someone to cuddle me and love me and hug me. And like,
I know. I mean, first of all, the fact that so many people come to me and don't necessarily have their messaging and their big idea nailed down, that's okay, because I know it's there.
Yeah.
So the, love over metrics that's beautiful. And it's the how, but your North Star is lead with love. And that's how you live, and that's who you are. And it's, just from a messaging standpoint, it's so clear. It's just, and it's something that I could say to myself, or anyone in your audience could say to themselves 2 weeks later, where they got bad news at work. They're going to walk in and talk to their team, and where they're feeling like they're going to rail on people and tell them they're disappointed. They could say in their heads, lead with love, and completely reframe the way they approach their team. That's how you know a message is sticky, is the simplicity of it is actually something that can guide people's behavior and shift their lives just with your words. So you created that, which is beautiful.
Yes. Thank you. And I also I just love how you were like the message, the North Star message, and then the how, like that's super helpful for me to see that. And also I love your ownership of like what it is that you do, because I did have a life coach. I did have people to lean on and to cry with, and all of those pieces is important, because I do the same thing with my own clients. I'm like, I'm a strategist, I'm a visionary, and I can help you with marketing. If the emotional stuff that's going to come up, the mindset, the resistance, all of that. And like, call your life coach, call your therapist.
You say the same.
Oh, yes. So I get it.
Yeah. Cause it's actually, I'm a strategist. I do speaker coaching, but I'm a strategist. I'm thinking about what kind of life and what kind of business, what do you want for your work and your life 1 to 3 years from now? And then we'll reverse engineer a talk based on that. I'm not the person that's like, hey, just put one elbow here. And, I'm not going to nerd out on really minor presentation things. I'm thinking, look, if you believe in this work and it shifts things for people, then let's do this. And and understandably the mindset and the doubt is normal, but I'm not, I'm a support person. And it's not that I'm unemotional, but I just, I want to get people back on track.
Yeah, no, you were so great at like holding all the pieces and holding that space for me, and having the patience and the compassion. And even
you were amazing. You needed the video, and they did take quite a while. Like, our event was recorded. Every event's different, but our TEDx event was 2 weeks ago, and we're already releasing our edited videos, but we have a different budget for production, but so now I'm getting emails from our speakers like, oh my gosh, that went so fast. And I was actually on stage longer than I thought. But you had this weird kind of,
it was like 7 months. It was like 7. And now I have like little micro, like 1-minute videos that we've edited to share that I'm really excited about. So I feel really proud of myself, and I feel very
great.
Thankful for our experience. And I'm curious for you, what do you find most exciting about the work that you do in helping people pull out that message? And what are some of the pieces that are more challenging?
What I'm excited about and what I'm grateful for, I feel there are moments, on a regular basis, where I say, I can't believe I get to do this for a living, where I just feel so fortunate. And I know that I am fortunate. I was born at a certain time, certain place. There are all kinds of unearned privileges that I have that allowed me to do this. Yes, I've worked hard, but I also, my grandmother, got married at 14 and had 12 children and was a domestic worker for 60 something years. So, it's never lost on me how lucky I am to be able to do this. And, my philosophy and my work is called the science and soul of speaking. And the science piece is just helping people construct those messages and using, neuroscience and cognitive linguistic research and psychology, et cetera. But the soul piece is what I care about. I have moments where I think it's an emotional experience for me, because people talking about what they care about most, and people being willing to show up in their own talks and not just present evidence or not just present case studies about other people, but also giving the audience a glimpse of who they are. It's one of the most meaningful things I can do. And human beings, when we're looking for behavioral change or creating movements, they need to have an emotional connection with the speaker, and not an emotional connection where the speaker is really self-indulgent and centering themselves and making them the star of the show. It's the type of speaker who can make the audience feel like, no, it's really about you. I care about you. So I just worked with one of our speakers at TEDx who was an astronaut, a female, African-American female astronaut. And she had already started working on a talk prior to getting to me. And it was 2 days before the event. I'm going off on a tangent, I'm realizing, but
no, you're not. I'm so engaged.
She
Please.
came to me on Friday, and our event was, let me think, I'm going to work backwards. She came to me on Friday and our event was a Tuesday. And I said, so let me see what you have. She said, yep, we're pretty much done. And she went through her talk and I just said, you can't do this talk. I said, you can't, I just can't let you do it. And she didn't even know me. And I said, here's why. I said, you are a phenomenal person. You're kind of like a unicorn. Like you're a doctor and a colonel in the Air Force and an astronaut, and you're a woman and you're African-American. I said, your talk, it talked about robotics and space, which is part of the work she did. And it also talked about Katherine Johnson, the woman from Hidden Figures, because she had a relationship with her. But I said to her, with kindness, I said, listen, I feel like you're hiding in this talk. And I want you to use this massive stage as an opportunity to show up in a different way. And we got into this deep talk around how women to be successful, especially, women who've been in the workplace for years and decades, we either had to act like men to be successful, or we had to just put our heads down and work twice as hard. And she said, it's uncomfortable for me to make it about me. And I said, I realize that, but it's not about making it about you. If you make it about the audience through some of your story, you'll make it about all of us. I said, I need you to think about my daughter and what would you want to tell her? And I said, how old were you when the moon landing happened? And how did you know you wanted to be an astronaut? And she painted this picture of like sitting on the branches of an oak tree when she was a little girl and looking into the stars and hearing about the moon landing and wanting to be an astronaut, but knowing that Black girls couldn't go to space. And that we talked through stuff and she was able to connect the dots and say, because she knew she couldn't go into outer space and explore that world, she became interested in inner space and how the body worked, and then became a doctor. And then eventually, after being a doctor for 15 years, she got an opportunity to become an astronaut and decided to go for it. And like, I cry even just thinking about it.
I'm crying right now.
It's moments like that. And I mean, it's not without stress. I mean, I laid it on the line on Friday afternoon and she was like, number one, who the hell are you? Like in a playful way. She's like, you don't need to see directly into my soul. And I was like, I can't help it. You came to me with you have all the ingredients. Like, I can't let you just do a generic talk, please. And I'm telling you that it created such a moment on stage. You felt it when you were at TEDx our TEDx the year before about designing your end of life. Were you in that?
Yeah.
I mean, there's moments where it's like everyone's actively holding their breath and sharing an experience in real time, and it's magic. And so, yeah, I have moments like that where whether it's cancer research or it's somebody's business, there's meaning to be shared, and we need to do this together.
So powerful. I actually want to link to that talk in this episode too, because I'm like, I want to watch it. Yeah. And also, just so powerful, just painting that, like when you really connect to the soul story, supported by science. I'm like, I want to see the talk. I want to read her book.
Oh, exactly. I said, we've created half of your children's book. Like I'm picturing the image of the little girl in the tree looking up at the
stars.
Right?
Yeah.
And what's really important, if I may, about critiquing other people's talks. I really want people to pay attention to the message that other people are sharing, because what can happen in a world that's so focused on how we present in terms of what we look like and our mannerisms. It's not about being perfect. Dr. Kaggle, had a very short amount of time to, I pushed her in a way, but I felt like I could. And so, yeah, there are probably things that she would have said, I wish I would have kept my feet grounded in one place, but it didn't matter. She was in this flow and just speaking to her heart, from her heart. And honestly, when she finished her speech and was milling around in Herbst Theater, it was like, oh my gosh, Aretha Franklin's here. People were just at all ages, people from all different backgrounds wanting to hug her, tears in their eyes. It's about connecting. So if anybody is listening and they're working with a speech coach or a speaker coach, yes, your gestures matter. Yes, your stance and all that stuff. But man, you have to dial in the message, and you got to speak from your heart, and you got to back it up with research. And that's how movements and change is created.
I am just so thankful that you were born and that you...
I'm so thankful you were born.
But just the bravery to call people to their true calling, can't be easy to just be bold and that ain't it. And really calling people to rise to their true essence and that true soul story. So I'm thankful that you could pull that out of her, that you could pull that out of me. And I just know so many people will experience that change and transformation from what you bring to the table. And I'm curious, as we start to wrap up, at the top of this conversation, you talked about, the dreaming big and how that hasn't always been really easy for you. So I'm just curious, where that comes from for you, and then for us to lean into what is your dream, that unsung song that hasn't become a reality yet, that you're feeling pulled and called towards.
I think I've always lived, especially as a younger girl and a young woman, I lived with two different messages. Inside, I did pretty much feel like I was worthy and I was good enough, and, I'm hardworking and smart, and that I could kind of be what I wanted to be. And then I lived in a society that it's like I was always the first or only woman or person of color in every room I was in. Not just growing up, but just professionally. And so I don't necessarily fit the image of what someone would imagine a leader, strategic advisor would look like. So, the speaking industry is overwhelmingly male and white, and leadership in our country is. So even now I'm still I used to think it was because I had a friendly face, and I was reminded by a colleague of mine, I am regularly head of speaker coaching for a major event and working with the highest executives, but I get mistaken for, staff all the time. Somebody comes up to me and says, can you get more soap for the bathrooms? Or people handing me their buffet, thinking that I'm holding a plate, and they take the plate from me because they think I'm serving the plates. And by the way, I was in food service for 7 years. So I'm not implying that one career is better than another, but in terms of I don't fit the mold. So, it was weird to have have a concept of I know I'm capable, but then people never picturing me as the person, especially before the internet, because I would show up and it would be that moment of whoa, you're not what we pictured. So, but opportunity comes from action. And so, that when I did have opportunities, I would work hard and get recognized. And I would tell people to, find mentors and look for opportunities where you can be part of something successful and big and advocate for yourself. For me going forward, I just feel really clear. I shifted my whole business on election night, because I've done leadership coaching and training for years, and diversity and inclusion work for 20 years. But it was election night where I realized the one thing I know how to do best is coach people around their messages. And I'm going to do that. And I'm only going to work with people that are bringing understanding and benefits to our society. So my big wish for and, dream going forward is to continue to work with people that know that their work helps others and they want to make a difference. And I want to continue. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made, is to just focus on this. So I just want to continue to do more of it because I feel really grateful, and it doesn't really feel like work.
I love it. I love it. And you have fixed the ball that went through the window. Where can people find you? Because I was like, oh, Jill updated her website. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So where can people find you if they have that message that they know can make a difference and help people?
Sure. The site you can go to is sciencesoulspeaking.com. Sciencesoulspeaking.com. So my work is the science and soul of speaking.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And is there anything that you would like to say before we say goodbye?
I have a call to action for everyone.
Yeah.
I really want everyone to do two things. I really want you to pay attention to the things that matter most. Take stock of how you contribute to the world and speak about it. And the more you practice, the better it will get. So whether you're just starting in your speaking career or you've been established for a while, I don't believe that we're above being on any stage. So if there's an opportunity and you know that you can help people and it's not too inconvenient or difficult for you to do, just get out there and talk about what matters to you. And the more you do it, the more traction you'll get and more opportunities will show up.
I just love you, Jill. Thank you.
So grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your heart and attention in listening to Lead with Love. If this message, leading with love in life and business, and remembering the humans and beating hearts behind the numbers and all of that good stuff, I would love for you to take the time to leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people find out about the goodness and helping spreading more love in the world, which we really, really need. So I would really appreciate that, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.